Well, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. This show is just for construction and contracting business owners who are curious to find ways of working smarter, not just harder. My name's Dominic Rubino, and I'll be your host. And today, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story of Ed. Ed's a roofer in New Mexico, increased his sales by $650,000 in just about a year and a half. Okay, so sales, we showed him how to increase his sales by $650,000 just about a year and a half. We're going to pick that apart today. But I want to tell you a little bit more of the story because his net profits increased by $105,000. Plus, he actually got paid every month, meaning we had to change the situation he had before we met, which is where some months he went home with nothing in his pockets, even though everybody else got paid. And even though his accountant said, hey, you're making money. And he wasn't. And the other thing that we helped him do was hire an administrator to take care of all the little things. If you want to hear that story, you're going to love today's show. What I do is I help contractors get back in control of their construction business, even if they don't know where to start. And I do that by showing them how to use very simple systems in the office, on the job site, and in their shop. You see, the truth is you don't need a lot of extra time or a business degree to build a profitable and solid construction business. You just need simple systems and some new ideas to old problems. And that's why this podcast shares expert interviews and real case studies like we're going to do today from other construction company owners who are probably a lot like you. People who are running family businesses, people who are running this business solo, people who are in a partnership, people who've taken over from somebody in their family or from the management. They are the management taken over from somebody else. Because in all of those cases, you're running this company on your sheer willpower because you have an insane work ethic. And everybody else around you knows that. And you've probably heard it from somebody before I said it here. If that sounds even a little bit like you, then I think you're going to like this show. And I'll tell you right up front, what we talk about on this show is growth oriented. So if you're interested in staying where you are, you're not going to like this show. If you're interested in just hearing the same things that got you to where you are today, you're not going to like this show. But if you want new information to old problems, you're going to love this show. You're going to enjoy hearing today's story. In my regular life, when I'm not hosting the podcast, my company works with no nonsense business owners of construction companies. We do private one-on-one coaching. We run boot camps. We hold free workshops and seminars all the time. There's always a way to get more of this information if you like it. If you have ever in your life said, hey, I'm actually trying to grow a business here, this is the show for you. Now, before we get to the show, I want to challenge you with an important question. It's a coaching question. What are you going to take away from today's overview, from today's case study, from the roofer example? It doesn't mean you have to be in the roofing business. You can be in any other trade. You see, this show is about the business of the construction business, which is very different than being a tradesperson who happens to have a couple guys working for him, who's got a few trucks. This is about the business of the construction business. Today's topic is how do I turn this construction business around? And let's get to that so you can take some great ideas and put them in place for yourself as well. All right, let's get to this. So I want to give you a summary here. As I said, Ed is a roofer in New Mexico, residential roofing, started the business from scratch, has a military background, great guy, just a super guy, really good work ethic, kind of on the quiet side. But one of the challenges that he came to me with was he was stuck. He was stuck because he's wearing all of the hats in the business. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? Started with me in the end of 2021. Has just decided that he wants to take a break from private one-on-one coaching. And so right now we're in the second quarter, third quarter, just the beginning of the third quarter of 2023. So you can do the math there. He's been working on this for about 18 months. So not too bad. A little shorter than my average client. My average client stays with me about 2 years, if not longer. My longest client is 9 years. I've been working with one client for 9 years. And of course, why would they stop? They just keep growing and getting better all the time. But everybody has their own schedule, and that's cool too, right? So just a real summary. I know I mentioned this already, but he's increased sales by $650,000 in that time. So that's just over a 2-year period. But interestingly, his net profits went from $110,000. So at the end of 2021, he had net profits of 110 grand. But he said to me the kind of thing you might have said to yourself when you're talking to let's just say your wife across the kitchen table. She says, honey, how did today go? I know you had a meeting with the accountant. And you say to your wife, well, the accountant says we made money, says we actually made 110 grand, but we didn't take that home. Where is that funny money? Where's that accounting money that they talk about? Because you didn't see it. He had that same situation. Well, in the time that we're working together, it's just under 2 years, he increased his net profit to $215,000. So from 110 to 215. So that's an increase of $105,000, of which he could see that. I'm going to let you talk to your accountant by why some of that math never shows up in your pocket. It has a lot to do with debt servicing, and other things that are inside the business. Remember, your accountant is doing your books so you pay less tax. I help you do your numbers so you make more money. So both the accountant and I care about the same things. We just translate them in different ways. Your accountant is there to make you pay less tax. I am around to help you take home more money. That's about the simplest description I could give you of our jobs. But I should add, on top of this, I have it here. If you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, you're going to see me looking back and forth to my notes, because I've got quite a few notes here from all of the coaching meetings that we've had. I just want to give you some summary points, but I want to be accurate. So his net profits went from 110 to 215K, which is an increase of $105,000, just around 2 years to get there. But on top of that, he was able to get paid every month. A lot of times before we were working together, he was making money on paper, but he wasn't getting paid. So that is not good. You want to get paid as the owner, especially for all the effort you put in. But he was also able to add an administrator on. And so let me kind of jump to one of the summaries here of the 6 things I want to talk about today. So there are 6 simple key points I want you to take away. Now, you don't have to take notes on today. Just listen. Just let it wash over you like a wave. Just go down to the beach with your family. Imagine you're going down to the ocean's edge, and you say to your family, "Hey, family, I'm going to go down to the water's edge. These big rollers are coming in, and I'm going to go stop a wave." Well, kids are all going to laugh as daddy or mommy gets knocked on their butt and dragged up the beach, right? Instead, change your attitude. Just go down to the beach and say, "I'm going to go play in the waves." I want you to have that same thing here today. You don't have to take notes. You can be listening in your truck or listening while you're walking the dog or at the gym. Just let it wash over you. You're on the right path. If you're listening to shows like mine or any other shows on business improvement, personal improvement, strategic growth, entrepreneurship, being a winner in this world, taking personal responsibility, taking action, then you're on the right path, right? And as long as you stay on that path, the longer you're on that, the more focused your efforts will be. So you don't have to take notes today. There's probably, usually as I'm talking, I think of some of the downloads we have in the free download library. Maybe you want to text me for one of those, but you don't have to take notes. Just listen and see where you can put some of those ideas in place. If you are going to write 1 or 2 things down, write down something that you want to do as an action. What are you going to learn from Ed? Not his real name. Roofer in New Mexico. That he is, but his name's not Ed. I never share names unless the guest is on themselves. All right, here's the 6 things we're going to focus on today. Number 1 is administrator. Number 2 is revenue per full-time employee. Number 3, ideal customer. Number 4, simple systems. Number 5, find a bottleneck. And number 6, aim high. I know those don't sound very technical, but they are. And let me further define those for you. When I say administrator, that's a people issue, and that lends itself to delegation. When I say revenue per full-time employee, and if you're not familiar with that term, we'll come to it in a few minutes. That's a money thing, right? Ideal customer, that's a growth item that lines up with strategy. Simple systems are just that. They are simple systems. And these are the tips and the tricks I've learned from other people, that I've learned by observing, that I've learned by doing it wrong in my own companies, or that I've seen other businesses do and thought, that's kind of crazy. I wonder if it would work in this other industry. And lo and behold, it does. So those are the simple systems that I pass on in my coaching and in my training. I've trained Coach Lee on these simple systems. When you're working inside our environment, that's what we're here to do, is share those simple systems. We'll talk about that a little bit today. Number 5, find a bottleneck. So that's a simple system as well, but I have a separate line item there. And number 6 is aim high. We're going to talk about that more here today. And that's a growth item. So growth, and that being strategy. That's why if you've been listening to my show for any length of time, you know that I always talk about the same couple of things. When people talk to me, business owners like yourself, or if I'm ever, let's say I'm contacted by your association to be a speaker at an event or at a conference or something like that. The association always comes back to me and says, here's what our members need. here's the curiosities that our membership has. And they always come down to the same couple of things. I can almost predict it because I've been doing this for 23 years. Now I still have to listen carefully and make sure I understand what the need is. But here's what always comes out is these buckets, always, right? The bucket of time or time management, the bucket of people, which sometimes I call team, like who's the team you're building around you, right? So we got time, we've got team, money, go figure. There's lots of different kinds of business coaches out there. The kind of business coach that wants you to sit cross-legged around a fire and sing Kumbaya is not me. I'm the guy you bring on to move the needle. Now we laugh a little bit as we go because I tell corny dad jokes and I don't take things too seriously, even though we're dead serious. But we got to move the needle. So I get measured from my ability to bring people money. And I'm not shy about that. I mean, look at what Ed, I almost said his name, Ed was able to do, right? Took another $105,000 home in a short, just under 2-year span. Listen, it's the same guy with the same truck, the same tools, mostly the same employees. Just changed a couple things in the business. Was able to take out another $105,000, right? So we got time, we got team, we got money. Then we've got strategies around growth, right? So some people want to grow because they want to exit. So you want to sell. You might want to sell to family. You might want to sell it on the open market to somebody, through a broker, or you might want to sell to a strategic buyer. I'll talk about that in another episode, right? So you got time, team, money, growth. And then we have the categories of sales and marketing. And those are all the things that I'm known as an expert in. Those are the things I've done in my own companies to turn it around. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But inside the 6 items that I learned from Ed, administrator, revenue per full-time employee, ideal customer, simple systems, find a bottleneck, and aim high. You guys ready to get into it? All right. So a couple of numbers here to reiterate. In 2021, and we started working together at the very end of 2021, like November, right? His sales were 1.5 million. By the time we finished, his sales were 2.15 million by not the middle, just kind of mid 2023. So just a couple of weeks ago, really. So he went up, like I said, an additional 650,000 in sales. But the important thing there to know is that I actually didn't help him go after sales first. The first thing I helped him go after was the administrator. Now, why the heck would I be asking him when he's short on money, already short on time, to onboard an admin? Because he was stuck doing the do all day long, just getting samples from customers. How much time does it take you to get samples back? How much time does it take you just managing your calendar or looking through emails and sorting through the ones that are garbage and getting rid of them? How much time does it take you to track down a simple number in your business? How much time, you see that just keeps coming up. And so as a business owner, we get pulled in a million directions and not all of them are valuable. They're not all good directions. And so what I do is very quickly is help you bring on an administrator. Can be kind of administrator / bookkeeper, as it was in his case, but somebody who is detailed, who likes to take care of things, who likes to be neat and organized, and wants to help this business owner grow their business. And so you see this and you're like, well, he increased to 650,000 over almost 2 years, called it 24 months. So you could do the math and divide it and say, well, he increased at a steady rate throughout. No. It took 3 or 4 months just to find an admin. And then it took 2 or 3 months for her to get onboarded and feel comfortable. So you're looking at 6 months out of that 2 years was just getting an administrator up to speed. And so that growth of 650K was really over just a little over a year. Because when you align your systems properly internally, when you start to take your own time seriously, that's when you can start to really put the levers on, right? So the first thing is, if you don't have an administrator, think about getting one. If you're not sure whether you should get one, you should talk to me because you already know my opinion on that. If you've got an administrator who's not, I don't want to say they're not the right person, but if you're not getting what you need out of your admin, set up a phone call with me. We'll talk about it. You'll talk to me or Coach Lee, one of us. We'll walk you through it. And by the way, you guys know my new cell, but let me say it again, because if you text to the old one, you're going to have troubles. You probably won't get a response. My mobile number for accepting text messages is 315-903-7853. If you want to talk about any of these things, contact me there, shoot me a text, right? But that administrator comes down to understanding my revenue per full-time employee. And I had to get Ed understanding that as well. Right. So what we did is all you do is you divide the revenue of the company by the number of full-time people. Right. In his case, he was bang on. He had about 200,000 in revenue per full-time employee. See, we can do the math, right? He was at 1.5 million, 1,500, 1, 2, 3. So you're looking at this on YouTube, 1.5 million. And you say, well, if each person was doing about 200 grand in productivity, he had 7.5 employees. That is just about right. Now, the reason that we do that is I want to understand how much each person's contributing to your company just from a sales perspective. So before you hire somebody, because I get asked this question quite often, how do I know I can afford to hire somebody? Well, if you can afford to increase sales, if you know how to increase sales by another 200 grand or 150 grand, let's say at the very bare minimum, then you can afford to hire another person. And you don't actually have to know how to increase sales 150,000. Let's use the minimum number. If you take that and you divide by 12, that's $12,500. If you're able to increase sales by 12,500 next month and the next month after that, you're ready to hire a person. And the reason that 150,000 works as a very ballpark figure is because 150,000 can be broken into 3 buckets on its own. Okay, so take that 150 and you've got 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 3 different buckets. Well, the first 50,000 goes to pay their salary, their wages. In general, very rough math, because I don't know your situation, but rough math is good enough for a podcast, right? So 50 grand goes to their wages or their salary, as it might be. 50 grand goes to overheads, just general overheads of the company. And the other 50 grand goes to something you might not be thinking about, which is gross profit. I need you to have that gross profit so you can be alive at the end of the year, right? You need to be charging enough to get a profit. That's why $150,000 is a very rough, we call it banker's math. Banker's math. If your bank manager takes you out golfing and you're just going up to the tee box and he or she's going to say to you, hey, how many employees you got? And you say 10. They already know you do 10 times 150,000 in revenue, 1.5 million ish. And they know whether you're qualified to talk about which kind of loan product. That's all it is. It's banker's math and very rough, but it's a place for the conversation to start. So Ed had to start there. And we had to find a way for this new administrator to come on board and make sure that she was contributing 150 grand in value back to the company. Not hard to do once you start to break the math apart, right? Hopefully you can see the logic that we follow as a business coach. There is a order of operations. There is a simple system. You know, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that we start with a strategic plan, right? We do something called a vision traction organizer, which is inside the EOS system. I don't want to get too technical on you, but it's basically a meeting where myself or Lee will sit with you and download everything from your brain. Imagine that we took a USB key and we stuffed it in your ear and we downloaded everything from your head onto that little hard drive. That little hard drive, which we now turn into a document, becomes our boss, your boss and mine. And that's the marching orders that we go follow because we've downloaded all the thoughts from you. What does this company need to look like? What are our sales? What are our margins? Who's our ideal customer? What are our problems? What are our bottlenecks? How can we improve operations? How can we improve distribution? How can we improve whatever we're doing in the business? How can we make that better? You have all the ideas in your head. They're just jumbled, right? They're all just jumbled. Our job of guys like me and Lee or Rick, if you're working with Rick on the lean side, is to take your skills, all of the skills you already have, and we're going to leave some where they are, and the other ones, we're going to brush them up. We're going to move them up the scale. So you're going to learn new things, but you're going to learn new things on steroids. And those things you learn on steroids, we're going to show you the shortcuts to get there, right? So you always start with a strategic plan. That strategic plan becomes our marching orders. Really, it's our boss. It's your boss and mine, if you can follow the bouncing ball on this one. And when we start to do the coaching, we keep shoulder checking that original plan, that original USB key that was stuffed in your ear when you downloaded all of your ideas for what you want this company to look like over the next 10 years. That's why Ed was able to get those results. That's why Colin, who you've heard on the show, was able to get those results. That's why Al was able to get those results. That's why all these different people can get the results, is because we just downloaded everything from their brain, just like a set of blueprints. And then we had a vision. Then we worked towards that vision, right? So item number 1 was get an administrator. That took a while, but we got a great administrator right out of the gates, which is good. There's a process to that, by the way. Number 2 was revenue per full-time employee. And then number 3 was actually ideal customer. You guys have heard me talk about this on the show before. And if I sound like a broken record, that's because there's only a couple of simple systems and you have to gut check back to those again and again. It is super easy to overcomplicate things in business. It's much harder to keep it simple. And, I've just had the benefit of having done this since the year 2000. And so I've seen these situations again and again. It doesn't mean I'm smarter at all. It just means that I know when to ask questions. I know when to listen carefully. I know when to add my opinions, and I know when to shut up. That's a skill in itself. But you guys are all smart. You got to this podcast. You got to be an audience listener in this podcast because you're smart, because you're curious, because you took initiative on your own, because you started your own company, because you go out and meet people and you make promises and sign contracts and then deliver great work. That's how you got here. So let's not fool ourselves. It's not like you don't know how to grow. You do. There's just so many competing things in your head. It's up to me or Lee to quieten them and sort the priorities with you. So you go after the most important things first. And with confidence, you ignore the things that can be left till later. See, simplified it, right? So let's talk about the ideal customer. Ed, I gotta make sure I use the right name. Ed had to understand his ideal customer, which sounds basic, right? Who's my ideal customer? Well, anybody that can fog a mirror, anybody that cut a check. No, that is not your ideal customer. That's a nightmare customer. Anybody that can fog a mirror, anybody that can pay me is not your ideal customer. Your ideal customer has a very specific set of definitions as a minimum. You might have more definitions. They need exactly what we can produce or build or make or maintain or repair, right? They need what services we're good at providing. They need those within a certain time frame, right? For some people, the time frame has to be within 6 months. If you do kitchen renos or home renos, you might be busy for the next 6 months on a reno. So the people you go talk to have to be willing to wait 6 months until theirs can start. For others, that person might need to, their timing might need to be sometime in the next week or so because you don't have much built out in front of you on the calendar. So your needs are going to change on timing, right? You need to have somebody who's got the right budget. Doesn't that make sense? Somebody who can actually afford your services. And then you also need to find somebody who places value on what you do and how you do it. And not everybody does that, as you may have noticed. But there's certain kind of customers that do. For those of you who do anything on a ladder, people hire you because they don't have a ladder, because they're scared of heights, because they don't have tools and they don't know how to do the work. Or, and think about this, you can use this the next time you're doing a quote or an estimate. They might be afraid of falling off the ladder because if they do, they can no longer provide for their family. Think about that. Think about that for a second. For those of you who do painting, gutters, soffits, Christmas lights. I used to do Christmas lights when I was in high school. Think about that. Why wouldn't somebody do their own Christmas lights? It's once a year. Because you're talking to an executive who can't afford to fall off a ladder because they got to fly to Dallas next week. They can't break their arm or break their leg. Plus, they don't have a ladder. Plus, why would they be outside in the winter? Plus, they're busy doing other things. So we're there to solve problems, but you and I need to understand what those problems are. And our perfect customer has a very specific set of problems. When we line our solution up with their problems, we do a much better job of helping them buy from us, which is selling. So Ed and I spent a lot of time talking about the perfect customer who just happened to have a bigger size job. And actually, most of the jobs were about $10,000, $12,000 each. But because we started to do some very intentional, very specific marketing, Ed was also able to get some multifamily, like rental apartments, where he was doing $200,000 and $300,000 jobs at a shot. And I'll tell you what, he project managed the heck out of those things to make sure he was profitable. And he made out like a bandit. He did great on that. He did great. But because he was intentional, because he had a plan, because we worked out who the ideal customer was, he was confident in his pricing. He knew his numbers. He had an administrator to take care of the details. Things just started to run smoother. And those big multifamily jobs ate up a huge chunk of this revenue growth that you saw me talk about before, and definitely the profitability. Okay, let's do a gut check. So far, we've talked about an administrator. That was item number 1. Item number 2 was revenue per full-time employee. Item number 3 was really focus on your ideal customer. Focus on your ideal customer. If you want to focus more on these kinds of things on your own, if you want a worksheet, if you like workbooks, if you're dying for a reason to go for a coffee and tell everybody that you're busy and can't be bothered, blame me, blame Don. I'm okay with it. You should always blame Don. Yeah, guys, I always forget to pull my microphone over. I'll bet you that sounds 1,000 times better. I apologize. Now it's there. Now you can hear my voice. I have a document that some of you have already downloaded, but if you don't have this one, you should actually get it. It's the ultimate Get Things Under Control guide. Just as we're talking about this final point here, ideal customer, delegating, profit per full-time employee, all of that stuff. The ultimate Get Things Under Control guide breaks it down into a couple of sections: time, team, money. You heard me talk about that before. Having less stress in your business, and then some other additional stuff I put in there, but time management, things like that. It's always very valuable. If you want that, it's a free download. Just text me. You guys know my cell. I already mentioned it before. So just text me when you're ready, and then you can download that. Let me look at my notes here. So while I'm looking at my notes, my cell is 315-903-7853. And then just say, what should you say? Get under control. If you just text me the words "get under control," then I'll know what document you're talking about. Shoot it off. You just download it and then put it on your hard drive. Keep it, because you're going to want to look at it later. Definitely print it off as soon as you can, and definitely go to a coffee shop and work on it. Okay, let's keep going here. So then we started talking about simple systems in the business. Where could we find some simple systems? A little sip of water for Dom there. So one of the problems that Ed had was the hot cold of having jobs and not having jobs, because he was the big energy source for the company. He did the marketing, he did the sales, he did the project management. And even if he wasn't doing project management, because he has a project manager, even if he wasn't doing the project management, he was still managing the project manager. So we cleared up a bunch of his time by hiring an administrator. So that's bonus points. But he still had a lot of time invested in managing, the field crews and the people in the field. We did a lot of work on that, actually, on making sure that people had SOPs, standard operating procedures, that we had, job site rules and the right types of systems in place, so that he didn't have to be there all the time. And one of the systems was, as I said, job site rules. What does it mean to be on Ed's job? You have to understand that, right? And so we had to share that with all the team and get everybody trained up on it, but it's not really hard. And once you show it to everybody, nobody argues with you. You just say, hey guys, I just want you to know, we finally put together a list of job site rules. And then you hand it to them and say, during our meeting, which you do a couple times a week, the toolbox talk, you just tell everybody, hey, these are the rules. And none of the rules are crazy. Like, show up for work on time. To you and I, that seems totally normal. To one of your crew, they're like, what? You want me to show up to work on time? Like every day? And you're like, yeah, that's what it means. You got to show up to work on time every day. That's what it means to work here. But once you have those rules in place, once you've handed that piece of paper out, you get everybody to sign it, talk about it. Has anybody got a problem? Like, I got a problem Thursdays. I got to take my kid to this or leave early to do that. And you say, well, we already know about that, George. It's okay. Talk to me on the side. There's exceptions, and you're still human, right? People have things going on. That's fine. But it can't be a surprise. George can't just leave and go, yeah, I got to get my kid to the dentist today. See ya. Meanwhile, everybody's trying to list a joist in place. Steel beam, reinforcement beam, and George isn't the guy where he's supposed to be. Those are problems that we've all seen, right? So having those kinds of simple systems in place was a real help. But I'll tell you the other simple system that, if I had to look at all of them, the one I would never remove was helping him put a dashboard in place. Just a simple dashboard that allowed him to track the most important numbers in the company. Now, let me start, guys. Some of you listening are going, Rubino, I'm not a numbers guy. Well, guess what? Rubino is not a numbers guy either, at all. But I do love the patterns in the numbers. And that's why I get my reports given to me in a very specific fashion. I might have a learning disability, I don't know, but I need to see graphs and charts. I get it when I see graphs and charts. If you just show me a page full of numbers at each little cell, it's nap time for me. I don't care. I just can't pull anything out of it. I mean, I can if I really pore over it, but more likely than not, as soon as you turn around, I'm going to turn it into graphs and charts. I like lines that go up and to the right. I do not like lines that go down to the right. We don't want lines that are dropping. We want them going up and to the right, unless it's something we're trying to decrease. So I need to see it in that fashion. But those are the kinds of simple systems that we had to work on, right? So what are some simple systems that you put in place in a roofing company? Well, one of them is job site rules. The other simple system was the customer communications. So once we get a lead coming in, and remember, you don't know this yet, but he paid for online leads. He had an online lead campaign going through search engine optimization and paid ads. So once that lead came in, we had to deal with it in a certain way. A very simple system is that we dealt with every lead the same way. And the rule was for the administrator, she had to contact somebody as everything else dropped. Didn't matter whatever she was working on. As soon as a lead came in, she had to get back to the lead right away and contact them. And then we had some scripting in place. She always knew what to say. So she didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time because her time is valuable as well, right? So the simple systems there allowed us to focus on our ideal customer. Our ideal customer wanted bigger jobs from us. Our ideal customer didn't care as much about price. It still had to be in line, but they wanted bigger jobs, more complicated jobs. And quite often, since we were the first ones responding, by the time other guys got back to them, other contractors got back to that lead, we were already signed and gone, right? Remember, he increased sales by $650,000. Some of you have $650,000 businesses, and he increased sales by 650 grand, right? How do you do that? Simple systems, by picking away at things in order, right? Okay, I'm going to move to number 5 because I could talk about simple systems all day long. Number 5 was find a bottleneck. And I want you to pay specific attention to what I say next. Find a bottleneck in your business, and then I want you to attack it. Attack it full force. Go after that bottleneck. Let's say the bottleneck is we don't do a good job on checking our invoices. Okay, if that's a bottleneck and it's cost us money, then we need to put all the available resources we've got in the company on fixing that and finding a solution. Not really placing blame or pointing fingers, because that doesn't help. That's just stuff in the past, right? In the future, this is how we're going to check invoices. In the future, this is how we're going to order product and material. Remember, this is a roofing company. So they're actually going through a lot of volume of product. And a mistake means that they've got overage sitting in their shop, or a mistake means they've got not enough on site, right? So they have to have very good systems to make sure they got the right inventory levels, really good systems. So again, you have to find that bottleneck and attack it. And you can really only attack one bottleneck at a time. You can really only attack one bottleneck at a time. So attack the thing. Don't sit there and talk about it for the next 3 years. That's why you're getting frustrated, because you keep trying things and they don't work. Now, sometimes you go after a bottleneck and you realize, well, we can't fix our purchasing systems because we don't have a purchasing system. And we can't fix our purchasing system because we don't have a line of credit. We don't have a line of credit because we don't have our books in order. So, okay, we got to get our books in order so that we can have a purchasing system, so that we can have a line of credit, et cetera, et cetera. So don't be afraid once you start chasing a bottleneck. If you find another bottleneck that is the reason, then go chase that. Move up the ladder. Always go up the ladder as high as you can and solve your problems from there. That's definitely something that you'll see Lee and I doing in our business coaching, is getting to the top level of the bottleneck, and then everything else underneath it gets a lot easier to solve. Okay, so find a bottleneck. And then the next one is aim high. How many times have I done this? And I get resistance all the time. So think about Ed here. You can hear me flipping pages here. Ed was doing 1.5 million in sales. And within just about 2 years, he got to 2.15 million. But that's not where we were aiming. From 1.5, we were actually aiming for 3. We were aiming to double his business. And think about the logic on that. What if we'd only aimed for 2 million, from 1.5 to 2 million? First of all, that doesn't even excite me. It's only $500,000 lift. Who cares? We can do that all day. Let's aim for something that's really big and hairy and fantastic to hit. 3 million, way outside of Ed's comfort zone. I'm not a $3 million company. No, I get it. You're not yet. But once you start to act and walk and talk and listen and ask questions like a $3 million company, guess what happens? You start to do the things a $3 million company would do. And this is why you hear people saying, I have to invest back in the business, because you want to invest in being that new kind of company. If Ed had stayed in the mindset of a $1.5 million business, he's going to find himself frustrated and stuck because he's going to be running a $1.5 million business on $1 million systems. And that's when things start falling apart at the edges. That's when you start losing customers. That's when everything seems to be getting out of hand because you're just maintaining where you're at. The reality of business is you have to be growing in some direction. It doesn't always have to be sales, but you have to be growing towards something. And that's what keeps you sharp. So if you sit down with me and you've got a $1.5 million business, if you sit down with Lee and you've got a $1.5 million business, we're not going to urge you to have a $1 or a $2 million business. If we do that, just hang up. You got us on a bad day. You got to have something reasonable to go after. So he had a $3 million plan. And granted, at 2.15, life looked pretty good. He'd increased sales by 650,000, but he'd increased his net profits, not gross profit, net profit. Net profit is cash in the front of your jeans. Net profit is the end profit, the profit that we're in business for, from $110,000 that he didn't see because that was accounting math to $215,000, which left him lots of money for the front pocket of his jeans. So that was an increase of $105,000 in what he took home. Same guy, same company, same computers on the desk, same printers, same blue pens and red pens in the little cup. Nothing really changes except the operations really tightened up. You start to find your profit leaks. He actually knows all of these items here from the Ultimate Get Things Under Control guide, right? Because he was living it. He was living everything inside there. We did time management. We worked on his team. We worked on money. We've already talked about that here today, right? He was definitely having less stress because he was making bank, making money. We're not in business to sell millions of dollars. We're in business to take home millions of dollars, right? You might be asking yourself the wrong question. And again, if you want that Get Things Under Control guide, just text me. All right, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so far we've talked about hiring an administrator, which was item number 1. Item 2 was revenue per full-time employee. Item number 3 was ideal customer. Item number 4 was simple systems. Item 5 was find a bottleneck. Item 6 was aim high. And if there's one thing I have to underscore here, the real big difference that we made there was hire an administrator and get a dashboard in place. A dashboard's just like a dashboard in your car or on an airplane. You just want to see everything in front of you, all the dials, all the gauges, because then you can make the decisions right now about what needs to happen next. Without the right information in front of you, you're always, well, it sounds obvious, flying blind, right? But Ed was no longer flying blind. The numbers tell you. The numbers just tell you what to do next. They tell you what to do more of and tell you what to do less of. You really can't ignore it once you see it. I mean, you can, but your business coach won't let you, right? So if you want to know how to turn your construction business around, that's a roofing example. And listen, if you like this kind of podcast, if you like this training, I have another training. It'll be a live webinar training. And it's all about time, team, and money. So for that one, send me a text and say time, team, and money, and then I'll know to invite you. We don't have the next one scheduled, but we have a wait list. So you have to be on the wait list to get the invite. And that means you got to check your email. Please check your emails because otherwise you're going to miss it. But if you want to get on the wait list for that training and do an even deeper dive, if you want here's the point. If you want the visuals, like if you want the tools, if you want some of the documents that you use to manage your time, manage people, manage money better, then when you're on the webinar, take pictures of the screen, or we can send you the presentation, whatever you like, but you got to be on there, right? Half of life is showing up. So just be on there. Anyways, send me a text at 315-903-7853 and say time, team, money. And then I'll know to put you on the wait list. And then when we decide to run another one, because I'm not running the thing if there's only 2 people ready, right? The next time we run one, we'll let you know. And if you can make it, you can make it. The training, it's actually a 3-day training, but we do it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. About an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the questions you've got. Sorry, still have my ringer on there. All right. Did we cover off what we needed to today? We did. Yeah. Actually, one of the things, some of you who are more numbers focused are going to want to hear this. I realized I forgot this. When we started at the end of 2021, his goal was to be at a 40% gross profit so that he could take a net profit of 10%, right? So goal was to be at 40% so he could get a net of 10. When we finished up here just a few weeks ago, his gross profit was in the 43 to 45% range, and his net was way over that. So on 2.15, he was taking a little over 220 grand. So he was above his net profit goal, right? So there's quite a bit here to unpack, but there's almost too much detail to talk about on a podcast. But you have to put the systems in place to get the rewards. If you're listening to this show, it's because you've already figured out how to work hard. And now you're trying to find little ways to work smart, make a little change here, make a little change there. And make no mistake, all of the changes that we talk about are tiny little changes, but they have a big impact, right? And imagine that you have a meeting with me or Coach Lee. It's a coaching meeting. Let's say it's the very first meeting where we're doing the strategic plan. Let's go right to the beginning of the conversation. There's going to be a whole list of things that you're dying to do in the business, right? I want to put profit sharing in place with my people. I want to have a better ordering system. I want to make sure we're profitable on every job. We want to do more of this kind of job and way less of that kind of job. We've got an insurance question hanging over our head. The landlord's barking at me about these things. That's a whole list of, right? So those all go on a big list. And then what we do is we look at the list together with you and say, okay, which one has to come first? Because something has to come first and something has to come last. And I'm not mad at the thing that comes last. It just has to come last. It has to come last because it's the last thing. But something else has to come first because everything else relies on it. And so that prioritization actually lends itself really nicely to time management, because time management is just priority management. So the more you've got these systems working in place, the more you've got somebody to bounce your ideas off of, the more you're able to make clear decisions and move the business forward, just one little step at a time, but you're doing it every week of every month of every year. And that's how businesses change. It's not an overnight success. Everybody thinks, I want to be an overnight success, or look at that guy. He went from nothing to tens of millions, and now he's loaded and he never has to work and he's always on his boat. But you didn't see the hard yards he put in beforehand. You didn't see him having a dashboard. You didn't see him or her hiring an administrator who was really good at their job and took ownership of their job. You didn't see him focusing on the right kind of customer. You didn't see him doing strategic planning and ignoring a lot of things, delayed gratification, right? We can't do that yet until we do this thing first. All you saw was him or her going across stage at the association meeting, getting the big award. And you think, oh, that guy's so lucky. He just timed the market right. No, he didn't. He didn't time anything right. He did everything right by doing it wrong first and getting better all the time. And you can do the same thing. That's why you're listening to this show. All right, folks, let's start to wrap this up. So there were two things that you can grab from today. Definitely join me for the training. If you like this, if you want to have a very intense, very short, very powerful training, come to the training thing. Well, you got to get on the waiting list. And then when we decide to run it, we'll run it once we've got a couple of people on the waiting list. And so for that, just send me a text that says time, team, and money to 315-903-7853. And then we'll put you on the wait list. And the other thing that I mentioned was the ultimate get things under control guide for contractors. And so that one there is a document. How many pages? I've actually got it up here on the screen. It is 12 or 13 pages long. And there's a whole bunch of different sections here and exercises you can do. A real point form, like bullet form. It's not hard to read. Definitely go get a coffee. Your coffee is going to be hot when you sit down. It'll be warm by the time you're done, but it won't be cold. That's how long the document is. See what I mean? Not too long. But if you want that one, just say get under control. And you just text me at the same number, 315-903-7853. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Ed did a great job. Now, Ed has decided that he wants to take a break from coaching, which people do from time to time, and that's cool. That means there is an open spot on my calendar if you want to do private one-on-one coaching. That doesn't happen very often, as some of you know. And then Coach Lee has some spots available as well. So you actually have a lot of choice in front of you. But even if you're just curious, just call. I love talking to people, love finding out about you, love helping you work through issues, because that's what helps us. Just like you love some sort of design challenge or construction challenge in your business, we love business challenges in our business. Thanks for checking in, folks. Let's get to the next part of the interview, which is where we're going to do a couple of dad jokes, and I'm going to tear apart a business problem with you and put it back together. Let's get to that. Okay, folks, let's do this. Obviously, we're going to start this section off with some quick dad jokes. Dad jokes are the best. You know why they're the best? Because they make you just see the world different. You grown. You're like, come on, Rubino, you can do better than that. Actually, no, I can't. I can't. And here's what I know happens is when I eventually do talk to, those of you that listen to the show and for some reason we get on a phone call or we're working together, you guys all comment on the dad jokes and you all comment that you're out there trying to tell them yourselves and you forget. I forget them too. That's why I keep them here. But listen, if we can't start the day with a laugh, if we can't start the day positive and facing forward, you guys have heard me say this before with my nose, my toes, my belt buckle, all facing the same direction, then what the heck are we doing? Right. And so, yeah, these jokes are corny and I love it. I love it. I love it because I'm here to bring you insight. I'm here to bring you the benefit of experience. I'm really, like a pollinating bee, right? I fly from flower to flower, from industry to industry, from boardroom to construction trailer to muster station to toolbox talk to tailgate talks. And when you listen to the show, I want you to grab all that good information and just use one or two pieces in your company, or just think about how you could use those things in your company. You might be frustrated sometimes. Other times you might find a nugget of gold. Frustrated because you can't put something in place that feels like you're blocked. And today I want to talk to you about that. We're going to talk about a tool that people are using to get themselves unstuck. So if you feel like you're unstuck, if you feel like you've got way more questions than answers, or if you feel like I have felt in the past where you sit down and, one day you take a moment to look at your company and you go, I got a list of things to do. I know everything I need to do. I just don't know where to start. If you've ever been in that situation, then what I'm going to talk about today, the training piece we're going to do here at the end, is going to help you with that. But let's do the dad jokes first, and then I'll dissect the simple system with you, right? So that's how we're going to jump from how do I turn my construction business around? We do a profit case study into jokes and back into tools. That's what we're going to do here. All right. And today's theme, electricians, because it's shocking how much those guys make. Actually, what's shocking is how they feel like they never have to clean up the job site. I'm talking to you, electricians. Hey, here's a quick question though, before we get started talking about electricity is how did Benjamin Franklin feel after he discovered electricity? Does anybody know how he felt? He was shocked, absolutely shocked. Here's one you can tell the kids. You can tell the kids and they can groan or they can laugh or giggle. Just imagine that you're at a summer barbecue or picnic or maybe just before school and you're hanging out with your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews. You tell them, hey, what did the light bulb say to the generator? I really get a charge out of you. I know. It's amazing actually that I would choose to do a set of jokes today about electricians because people are usually shocked when they find out I'm not a very good electrician. As a matter of fact, I'm so bad as an electrician. And I know this goes for a lot of us who have electrical trades background. I don't. I'm just doing a bit here. Electricians usually have to strip to make ends meet. Yeah, I'm going to leave that one with you. You can use that on the job site, but just be careful. People that have a long career in electrical, whether it's residential or commercial, they really never die. They just keep plugging away. Yeah. You guys are picking these all up, right? I'm delivering them very seriously. I'm delivering them as if I'm an electrician. People, I am not an electrician. I'm delivering some jokes here on your behalf to keep you in the trade spirit. Here's a joke, though, a little bit of a longer one that you're going to be able to tell maybe at in the lunchroom or on break or maybe when you're out the shop picking up supplies. A chemist, a biologist, and an electrical engineer all had been sentenced to death, and they're on death row waiting to go to the electric chair. Everybody's nervous, of course, and finally the big day arrives. The chemist is due to go in first, and as he gets strapped in, the executioner says to him, do you have anything you want to say? And the chemist says, no. And so the executioner flicks the switch, but nothing happens. And according to the law in this state, if an execution attempt fails, the prisoner has to be released. So the chemist is unstrapped and allowed to walk free. It was the biologist's turn next, right? The biology guy. So after he's being strapped in, the executioner says to him, hey, do you have anything you want to say? And the biologist says, no, just get on with it. Well, so the executioner flicked the switch, but once again, nothing happened. So just like the chemist, the biologist ends up getting released. Now it's the electrical engineer's turn. He gets brought forward. Executioner says to him, hey, do you have anything you want to say? And the engineer replies, if you swap the red and the blue wires over, you might just get this thing to work. Maybe tell that to the inspector when they come and do a site tour with you. Hey, listen, let's dissect a common set of problems here. And I'm going to actually do it with telling a story I'm very proud to be a part of. Although I'm part of it, just like we are here in the show, right? I'm here to inform, inspire, educate, maybe entertain. I know on the entertainment side, it's a bit light, but I want to talk to a guy that we're going to call Mr. White. He's a renovator in Ann Arbor, Michigan. If any of you know the reference to Mr. White, go ahead and leave that inside joke, Mr. White. It comes from a movie. Leave that in the contractor strategy group. We'll see how many people get that one. What movie did Mr. White come from? Anyways, Mr. White, who we're going to call, is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. When we first met, when he first reached out, and he was just a listener on the show, he was doing about $300,000 a year as a renovator, not profitable, working like a dog, not profitable at all. And please remember, he was a show listener just like you, just a regular guy, thought he'd start listening to some podcasts, stumbled across this podcast, obviously because people like you had left fantastic reviews and had left thumbs up. Or as a friend, you said to your other renovator friends, you should listen to this Dominic Rubino guy. He's got a pretty good podcast and he'll show you exactly what to do to turn your construction business around and feel like a champ doing it. Anyways, that maybe isn't what happened, but that's what I dream happens out there. Anyways, Mr. White was stuck in his business. Back to seriousness. Very stuck, maybe like you feel like you're being stuck. Perhaps there's times you have analysis paralysis, just so much going on. He didn't know where to start. He was working extremely hard, which I know all of you are, but he was just at the point where just the business wasn't any fun anymore. Definitely not taking home enough money. I mean, on a $300,000 business, it doesn't matter how well you run that thing. You're just not taking home enough to keep the house going. And of course, what does that do? That leads to stress. That leads to stress at the kitchen table. That leads to, I'm putting words in Mr. White's mouth here, but I've been in this situation in my own companies in the past because I've built and sold and started a number of my own businesses. And I'll tell you what, when mama's not happy, nobody's happy. And mama's not happy because the family's not being taken care of. And the family's not being taken care of because Dom, me, wasn't running the business right or well enough to be able to bring home enough money. That's it. And if you've ever been in that situation, or maybe you feel like you're in that situation now, it's tough, right? It's tough to have a beautiful and fantastic wife who's also that understanding. When you say, just give me a bit, I'll work through this. Just let me get over this hump and we'll get through this. But how long can they take that answer from you, right? So Mr. White was in that situation. As a matter of fact, I went back to look at my notes as I put together this little mini case study for this learning piece. And one of the things he had said to me was, I made more money when I did fences on my own. I made more money when I did fences on my own. He just wasn't taking home enough money at 300K, right? Anyways, what he did is he downloaded a document. You guys may have heard me talk about this here on the podcast before. But if you haven't, it's the Where Are My Blind Spots? It's a free download. I want you to have it. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's going to cost you time and 2 pieces of paper. You got to print it yourself. But, I really want you to have this information because even if you and I never have a chance to meet, I want to make sure that I allow you to have the impact on your business that you want to have in your own way, at your own pace, in your own time, right? The full title of the thing is, Where Are My Blind Spots? A Construction Business Reality Check. I love reality. I do not like theory. And so Mr. White went and did this on his own. What happens when you do this? There are like 20 questions here. I've got it open so I can have my notes in front of me. There are 20 questions. He ended up all of the numbers there, and he scored himself at 32%. So his business was running at 32% of what it should have been. So if you're curious, if you want to put numbers to the stuckness, I know stuckness isn't a word, but it feels like it worked right there. If you feel stuck, if you have like analysis paralysis, if you've got a long list, you already know the things you need to change in your business. Let's all agree. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I just want to help you put them in a sort and order format so you can figure out what to do first and what to do last and what to ignore, right? And sometimes we're talking about symptoms, not causes. Well, this kind of report helped Mr. White figure it out. And that's how he came up to the number 32%. It's actually even easier than that. Like, how do you might ask, how do I get to a percentage on this thing? Well, every question, and there's 20 of them, you score yourself from 1 to 5. That's it. And you score yourself. 1 is weak, you feel your company's weak, and 5 is you feel your company's very strong. And Mr. White actually had a couple of places where he felt the company was very strong, but there was a lot of places he felt it was weak. Because don't forget, he still got 32%. And by the way, even at 32%, Mr. White's a rock star, and so are you. He built that company from nothing, obviously starting with fences and stuff like that, and now doing full home renos. But all that work was still getting him the same results. He hadn't figured out where he was truly stuck and to get himself unstuck, right? And that's where I come in, and that's why you listen to the show. If you want this thing, just text me and I'll send it off to you. It's called the Where Are My Blind Spots? A construction business reality check. And just, you guys know how to text me, right? The cell phone number, although the cell phone number has changed, you guys know that, right? Make sure you send any text messages to this number. Here it is, 315-903-7853. Just text me there and say blind spots, and then I'll know which report you want to see, right? Because we produce one of these podcasts a week on this show. I have another show that's more for the cabinetry and architecture millwork show. So there's 2 podcasts a month there. So there's 6 episodes a month that get produced. And if we ever have a download for people, you got to put the keyword in there so we know which one to send you. That's it. Anyways, the story about Mr. White is he was able to take that, set of questions and really pull things apart, but slow down for a second. This might seem like it goes against logic, but it's important in our business to slow down to speed up. One of the things I do every day, thinking about this because I haven't done this yet this morning as I record this, and it's sticking with me, is I actually write down my affirmations. There's 8 or 9 statements I make about myself and my business and my role as a dad and a husband that, I want to restate to myself every day as I start the day. Well, that's slowing down to speed up. There's been days when I said, I don't have time to do that. Then there's been days when I said, let me time myself. How long will it take me to write down that less than 10 statements that keep me focused on my future? It's under 2 minutes. But that time is so valuable. Like, it's all these little tricks we need to play on ourselves as business owners, as leaders, that they don't talk about in school. They don't teach. You're not going to learn it at the lumberyard. You're not going to teach it at your paint distributor. The bank's not going to tell you this stuff. You got to come to shows like this, where people who've actually run construction businesses or talk about success, who are here to inform and educate. That's where you get this kind of stuff. And by the way, let's just take a step back. For all your competitors who don't listen to this show, they never get to learn this. So 2 thumbs up to you, right? What are you going to do with that piece of info? How are you going to put that in place in your business? Anyways, if you want this, just send me the message blind spots, and then we'll walk through that. This is what Mr. White did here is he took that $300,000 business and eventually turned it into $1 million company. Actually, that's where we're at now. I have to say, he started as a listener. He did the blind spots, a little while goes by, and then he and I decided to work together, which you never have to do that, but he decided to do that. But that's what when he had the numbers, when he was able to quantify, when he was able to actually poke a hole on that piece of paper and say, this, I now know where the blind spot is. I now know where the crack is in the company. We got to go fix that. And then he found out that he was, still working hard, but not getting through it. That's when we started to talk together. You and I may never meet. You may never work with me. That's totally fine. But I still feel like I owe you a duty of care. That's why we always have free things for you. But anyways, here's the actual outcome. Oh yeah, the blind spots document is fantastic. Working together with Dom must work. Lots of people do it. Lots of people work with his team, blah, blah, blah. All of that actually comes down to something a lot more important. And this is the coolest thing. This is the part of the story I just can't wait to tell you, which is Mr. White got to do something that made him feel 10 feet tall and like a true provider. His daughter needed braces, and he was able to cut a check out of operations for $7,000 to pay for his daughter's braces, just in one shot. And I didn't know this at the time because you don't talk about these situations until they come up, but his son had needed braces beforehand. And it was this massive, I think discussion might be a light word, with him and his wife at the kitchen table, because they had to finance it for his son. And that's, for a guy who's only doing 300 grand in sales, do you qualify? Of course, the dentist is going to find a way to get you to qualify, but now you've got an extra payment. It's just a ton of stress on a family. And you probably feel that in your own way, in your own situation. But here with his daughter, she needed braces. And normally that would just make him, nervous, sweat. How am I going to cover that? But he was able to cut that check just because of the things he put in place, because of the decisions he was able to make, because somewhere back in time, he had decided, hey, why don't we take a second? Why don't we face reality? Nose, toes, and belt buckle in the same direction. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do that report. It's going to show me where the gaps are, or as we call them, the blind spots. And when I see those blind spots, now I know what to do. And so the end, let's say the blind spots was the start of it. The end of the story still hasn't been written yet, but partway along, one of the milestones is this guy's able to turn his business from 300 grand to $1 million. It's actually 1.04 at the time of me recording this right now. 1.04 million. But he's able to cut a check for 7 grand without really thinking about it. Just came out of operations, came out of a profitable job. But he's banging those out now. Banging those out because he knows how to do it, right? Life becomes simple when you start to put simple systems in place. Anyways, get the report, slow down to speed up. And please just send me the keyword blind spots. That's just how hard it is. I'm trying to make it easy. I can't make it any easier. Send me a text. I will send you an email back. You will download it to your hard drive. And then you've got it. Just text me at 315-903-7853 and say blind spots. Now, what I need you to do, and this is very specific, this is what Mr. White did, is you got to print the thing off. And then you have to take, it's 20 questions. You have to take 1 hour out of your week. And this is 1 hour for you. And you know what I'm going to say next. I want you to leave the office. I want you to have that printed copy in your hand. I want you to turn off your phone. You're not that important that you can't have your phone off for an hour, my friend. So let's take a step back and check your ego. You and I are not that important. You can turn off your phone for an hour. Nobody calls you when you're in church. Nobody calls you when you're in the bathroom. You don't have to answer that phone. You can take an hour. You can take an hour. Take it, but use it wisely. Go to the nicest coffee shop in town. Have that printed copy. Get a cup of coffee that you love. Face the corner. Put your headphones in so nobody's going to bug you. And just take a pen. That's it. That's what you need for this exercise. You need this download and a pen and time to do it. Now, nobody's going to give you that time unless you take that time. And you are the owner and the leader of this business. You deserve to take that time. Everybody that works for you needs you to take this time because you're investing in the future of the business by doing a quick reality check assessment like this. It's just 20 questions. But the purpose of the questions is to slow you down to think about different pieces in your company. And score yourself. You never have to show anybody the scores. You and I may never talk. Totally fine. Totally fine. But you're going to know the answer. And then once you look at these, all you have to do is figure out, hey, I think I'm going to go tackle this one this year or this week. If you're working with me or any of my coaches, we're going to tackle those things within 2-week segments. Boom, 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 boom. But on your own, you might take a year. And the questions are just like you would expect anything from me. They move from the very general to the very specific. Here's one of the most general ones. I'll share a couple here if you got a second. Here's the first one. Just as an example, score yourself on this from 1 to 5. 1 being I feel we're very weak. 5 being we are rock solid and strong. Okay. Now remember, this is very general. This is a very high level question. And some of you might listen to this question and laugh and go, there goes Rubino talking about how to put wings on a unicorn. But I'll also explain why this is an important question that might be one of the things you've been overlooking up till now. Here's question number 1. Score yourself as I say it from 1 to 5. Are you weak or are you strong at this? So answer this question for yourself in your own words. And don't think, just answer it. Here it is. We have a clear vision in writing that has been properly communicated and is shared with everyone. How are you on that? Are you weak or are you strong in your company? Just give me a minute. I'll come back and explain that. Let me just choose another random question from down here. Here's a juicy one. This is why you need to do this confidentially. All of the people in my company are the right people. Score yourself from 1 to 5 right now. I don't know your answer, friend. I don't, but you know the answer. All of the people in my company are the right people. Anyways, there's These are all the different kinds. There's 20 of these questions. My goal with this and my goal with the podcast is to inform, educate, and inspire. That's my role. That's what I do. That's my job in this world. And so I'm trying to do my job for you. Your job, get this report, sit down for a sec, have a coffee. I'm just asking you to take an hour for yourself. As a matter of fact, you guys know this. I talked about this more in the past. I'll even buy you the darn coffee. If you take a picture of yourself, this is how it works. You guys have heard me say this before. I haven't done this in a while, though. This is good. If you take a picture of yourself with the coffee and the paperwork at a coffee shop doing the work, okay, so I need a picture of you. And so it's a selfie, right? Welcome to the modern era. It's going to be a selfie of you with the coffee and the paperwork at a coffee shop doing the work. Text that to me, the same cell number, 315-903-7853. I'll send you $5. I'll send you $5 because I don't know what coffee shop you're going to. Probably be an Amazon gift card. Do what you want with the Amazon gift. I don't care, but let's just call it a coffee. Some of you only pay $3 for the coffee. Okay, you made an extra $2. Guys, I hope you can see I'm just trying to do everything I can. Like I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get what you want. So I've got the report for you. There you go. Just download the report. Send me the message, blind spots. Text it to me, and I'll text you back the report. Then go get a coffee, and I'll pay for the darn coffee. It's $5. I'll send you the $5. You got to send me the picture, but I'll send you $5. Like I can't make it easier for you than this. I can't. I mean, if I can, let me know, actually. Let me not put restrictions on that. I just said I can't. That's a bad on Dommy. Let me know how I could make this even easier for you. But I hope you can see I'm trying right now. I'm being as creative as possible to find ways to cross the distance from where I'm sitting to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to Seattle, to San Jose, to Sarasota. I don't know where you are, to Sydney, Nova Scotia, or Sydney, Australia, wherever you are. I'm trying to make it easy, guys. I'm trying to make it easy. Anyways, be like Mr. White. Right? It all starts with education and knowledge. By the way, you can ignore doing this. You can leave this podcast now and go, oh, that was good entertainment. A couple of good jokes. There's Rubino delivering the good jokes. I'm going to retell that joke. But listen, if you're not going to take action, then I want you to unsubscribe and never listen to the show again. How's that for cojones? If you're not willing to take some sort of action, well, it doesn't matter whether you download the report, but do something. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. If you've learned something today, go make a change in your business. If you're not willing to do that, then maybe do keep listening to the show, but find something that really appeals to you and make that one change and stick and stay for 12 months until you get that thing fixed. Or somewhere in the middle, download the report and just take an hour. And I'm going to buy you the darn coffee, right? Just send me the text, 315-903-7853. So let's just go through what Mr. White was able to do. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, he was a listener just like you, doing $300,000 a year, not profitable. He was stuck. He was working hard, but working hard wasn't working anymore. And it was almost not fun anymore. I'm reading his notes, not taking home enough. I made more when I did fences on my own. So then he did the blind spots assessment and he scored himself at 32%. And then sometime later, he did decide to work with me. You never have to do that, but he did decide to work with me and he got himself up to $1 million a year, 1.04 as of today. 1.04 million. And because of that, he's able to cut a check to take care of his daughter's braces. I don't know what your personal thing is. Maybe it's taking care of your folks. Maybe you need to buy a cottage or a cabin somewhere, and maybe you need new machinery. I don't know. But your thing is your thing, and that's cool. But just get the report. At least have the report. And then you can choose to do it or not. And then if you do it, take a selfie and I'll send you $5 so that I pay for your coffee. Okay. I hope you got a lot of value from this journey that Mr. White went on. By the way, if you want to learn more about him, I use his real name and his picture and a little video of him. We do a training on time, team, and money. And I always have a wait list going for that. If you're not on the wait list yet, get on the wait list. To get on the wait list, you're going to be surprised. I have a very simple system for you. If you want to be on the wait list for the time, team, and money training, and if you want to learn about Mr. White's story and see Mr. White on the video and hear Mr. White's story about getting braces for his daughter, just text me, but then say time, team, and money. Then we'll get you on the wait list for that thing. And I've said the cell phone number a couple of times, but here it is in case you missed it. 903-7853. Okay, so a couple of actions for you here today, a couple of strong actions, because I'm supposed to be your business coach. And your business coach is just not all jokes about electricians and funny things. I know sometimes I come across as goofing around, but I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious because I have an important job to do. I'm here to help you change your life. Sometimes I got to drop the hammer. If you're not willing to make those changes, then you probably shouldn't be listening to this show. If you are curious about making changes, then you should keep listening to the show. And I'm okay either way, but for those of you who keep listening, I'll never let you down. I will not let you down. As long as you reach out and I can reach back, then I'll do what I can. I'll always be there. All right, folks, I really appreciate having you as a listener. I hope one day we meet at a trade show or a conference or somewhere. We can have a coffee together. Maybe that would be cool. And when that day happens, it's going to be a fantastic day. I cannot wait to meet you. Until then, grab the report, keep listening, or like the podcast. Do me a favor on that, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.